Hello.
Hello, this is Nansu from UCSD.
Hi, Nansu.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Anu. This is Ian.
Hi, Ian.
Yeah, no, that's it. But only first we have a mapping. Mapping tells you which fields you have, and then we have a real data.
Yes.
So for some of repositories, the mapping does not have a specific field. We cannot search for those fields.
Oh,
That's yes, but we are not completing. Oh, yeah. So that's not
not two
yeah,
yet?
we just did it.
Oh, two? You mean? It's three? You mean? Oh, no, no.
Yes, it's obvious. We don't get any of the
Hello?
Hi, Ron.
I think that's like, maybe like,
When you're searching for it, you don't have the field, so it doesn't return it.
because I use that for the application.
Okay.
Maybe I can sometimes just look into that. If there's any work.
Or you're moving to the next one.
We're working on it. I'm working, I'm updating the report.
Okay.
That's why I'm going on this solution.
So let's wait for a couple of minutes. Jeff is not on the call yet. Hello.
Hey, it's Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. So then I think we have most of the folks that we really want on the call. Oh, there. So Trevor.
I thought you want me here. You done with your grant?
I was meeting with you, I'm not done with my grant.
Okay, if you want, you can skip this and,
I guess I'll skip it.
you know you're busy with your grant, yeah.
I appreciate it.
All right. Okay, so then we can get started. On the agenda today, we have updates on action items, and then we just want to talk about the pilot project integration, which we need to start doing soon, since we already had 2 pilot project presentations. And then we'd like, I guess as usual, we should discuss about the updates on more repositories that are coming into DataMed. And Raylinda and I have a couple of questions with regard to the workflow. And then we can talk briefly about the DataMed version 1.5 release, as well as updates from all other team members. So in terms of, oh sorry, before I start, let me, in the room here I have Xiaoling, Hua, Nina, Ergen, Divakar and Drilling. And on the call, we have Ian, Jeff, Nansu, Ron. Anybody that I missed? Huni and Claudio said that there are other meetings that they had to go to, so they wouldn't be on the call today. Okay. So we're supposed to generate a help and a FAQ page, and I haven't seen anybody adding any information there. So please do start adding information, so then we can format everything and put it on. Hi, did somebody just call in?
Yes, this is Phil from Oxford. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Philip. And so please do start putting in the information, then we can get this material generated. Also, we were to have discussions, I guess, by Jeff and Claudio about how to have a robust server to host BioCaddy. Jeff, do you have any other updates?
Yeah, we had some initial discussions. We got the list from Ruling in terms of the queries, but we still need to figure out how to issue the, what a search query turns into on the back end. So, and perhaps we can have I can have a quick follow-up chat with Ruling after we get off this call.
What is this?
It's the query sent to the backend of Elasticsearch.
That's our part, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
query expansion.
Just I think I sent you example. Do you receive it? Example search.
Jeff?
Yeah, no, I'm.
You're looking for your emails?
Yeah. Give me a second to search and.
Okay, that's fine. So, but anyway, if you need it, just set
Yeah,
up
we
another
can-
meeting. So the ingestion workflow, everything's good now.
We're going to talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Also for the video, I know we had some feedback from Alejandra and Ron. So if anybody else has feedback, please do send it on. It would be nice to have that video before completed before we do the BioCAD BD2K all hands meeting demo, because then we can have the video playing and then we have the demo. Actual demo and the hands-on demo going on around the table, and you can use Jeff's projector to have this kind of a promotional video playing there. In terms of abstracts for the BD2K all hands meeting, we submitted the DataMed abstract, and that has been requested for a system demo. So we will have to have a poster and a system demo. And we also submitted the ingestion and indexing abstract for a poster. Susanna has already submitted an abstract for that. And I know that Nansu submitted a metadata mapping abstract. That was also for a poster, right, Nansu?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we have four abstracts at least from the core development team and DATS as well. I think Lucilla also submitted a BioCAD abstract. So.
Yes, she did.
So, talking about posters, Jeff, are you going to send do you want us to print your poster, right, for the BioCAD for EMEA?
Yeah, I can send that to you.
So if you send it, we can get it printed here. So this, again, it's in the BioCAD CDT folder, and so please do go in and add in material for the health page and the FAQ page. So for pilot project integration, we had a presentation by Ram and his group last week regarding the metadata discovery and integration. And so I just wanted to talk about how we plan to integrate these pilot projects into DataMed. So one of the things that they did offer was that we could use this, of course, for mapping. They already have they have DATS version 1 in their system, and they've offered to map DATS 2.1 and also map the relations between version 1 and 2.1. So then if we want to use the system for, if we are going to map everything into their OpenFurther platform, if there are changes in the model, then it would be sufficient to, I guess, just map to the updated model, and you would have automatic mappings for all the prior repositories. Am I correct? I think that was what I understood from their presentation. So is this something that is useful for us? If so, then we should think about how we want to integrate it.
I mean, it's useful in the longer term. I mean, the question is if there are the cycles to investigate that, the integration piece, because it's not a, like a tool that you layer on for visualization or something like that. it to sort of being able to add some more automation to the mapping, but that's a sort of a heavier lifting for the integration.
So do you think, so that would mean extra effort from our end?
Well, it would take cycles away from getting repositories in, and we'd be back in more of a development phase again. So, I mean, you know.
So a question about this pilot project, and in terms of who can work on it still. I mean, is the team that did the pilot project effectively done with it? I mean, looking at this, and maybe we missed the opportunity here, but from the title, we're looking at metadata discovery and integration. With the benefit of hindsight, and I kind of don't know why we didn't do this, we might have been looking at, well, how could they discover and integrate with the DATS model? So they have 1.0. Okay.
Right. At that time when they were working on their pilot project, we had only 1.0.
So they did the right mapping to what was there at the time.
Yes, that's correct.
So, I mean, to the second bullet, is this going to be useful?
So is it something that we want to integrate into our pipeline is the question, because
I think Jeff probably have a better understanding and.
So Jeff thinks it's going to be.
I mean, it's a question of priorities, right? I mean, right now we have 2.1, and it's very stable. Any modifications or updates we've been talking about with Philippe and Alejandra are very minor in terms of some corrections and some so the goal that I thought everyone was talking about was to get more data sources in rather than do more work on the pipeline itself. And so everyone is sort of, in a sense, resource limited to do that. I mean, that's sort of what the focus is. So I would.
Jeff, based on your understanding, whatever they have right now, will it speed up the ingestion, or we don't know? We need more investigation to find out.
Well, we'd have to investigate it and integrate and do the initial integration, and then people would have to learn how to use the system, and then we'd have to see how well it works for just a whole host of data sources. So it's not I don't think it's
not straightforward just to
adapt
it, right?
It's not like commercial off-the-shelf software that you just sort of plug in and use.
What did they point this at, and what did they discover? What did they test this out on? I forget.
Did they test on?
So they did DATS, and I think they did 2 or 3.
Well, no, DATS is what they're trying to pull out. What I'm asking is, I mean, they're talking about repurposing of heterogeneous data. So we want to discover metadata from heterogeneous data. What heterogeneous data did they point this at? And what did they discover?
I thought it was PDB one of them?
Yeah.
I think it was 3 different.
We might have a comparison.
Different PDB file types, and then they had. I'm trying to remember their presentation from last week.
So I'm trying to pull up the presentation, if that would help.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
We're reminding ourselves here.
Well, if you think in terms of prioritization, the question I guess you need to ask is how much time, people effort would be required to do this integration, and what is the status of the further ingestion of data sets, and what are the deadlines that we face? One being the all-hands meeting, the other being DataMed 2.0 at the end of February.
Where I'm going with it, Ron, is have they got a tool here that can
That
be
is useful
applied to certain data sets
Yeah.
and therefore, complement what's going on with the pipeline. But
Right.
To answer that question, I really want to remind myself of what they did. And
So these are the four things that they talked about doing. And
it's still abstract, though. I mean, what did they actually look at?
I think it's basically PDB and there was some other metadata, but I don't know what the...
Yeah,
well,
so they
without
used
further
PDB.
ado, if that's what they did, I mean, aside from anything else, the interesting thing here that what they've done might answer is how did what they got out of PDB compare with what the pipeline got out of PDB?
Yeah, so the first thing they need to do is convert to DATS 2.1, right? Right now they are in DATS 1.0. And I think you said they offered to...
Yeah, they said they could help us in the email that Ram sent after, which I forwarded to everybody. He said that he could help us, map, because that was a question that I asked if we had an updated model, and if you have to map the relations, then you could automatically update the previous mapping. So.
But before they do that, I mean, I'm okay with looking at it in DATS 1.0. I would want to ask the question, how did the metadata, their method of extraction, compare with the pipeline's method of extraction? And I would want to hold on converting it to 2.1 to, I don't know whether that effort is worth it without knowing whether this was a profitable route to extract metadata.
Well, I mean, from the presentation last week, I mean, what this would potentially assist with is once you have a number of different metadata formats defined, that it might be easier to do the next one if the system is able to assist in some way, right?
So it would be in a way like what we are looking at in terms for data site, right?
For which?
For data site? Like we're talking about...
No. I mean, if someone provides DATs, then that's the easiest method. But if we already have a number of different metadata formats and someone provides a new one, that from what's known about prior metadata formats, the mapping in that case might be quicker because there's some prior knowledge that can be applied. But again, this is the integration itself is in a sense a research project.
Well, I mean, Jeff, it seems to me that there's something that we know about to some extent for the pipeline that it seems to me we don't know about this method, which is we know something because the pipeline has now looked at 23 repositories, we now know something about what it takes to configure that pipeline to look at a different repository. But if based on, to what extent do we know the same thing about this route in? And I see.
Someone would have to go through and add the 23 plus repositories.
I'm not trying to create more work here. That would be creating more work. I'm just asking the simple question about what have they done? Just from understanding, if all they've done is PDB.
So they did PDB and ClinVar.
It's much less concern to me about what standard they're spitting it out in as to what's the value of what they were able to extract. And was this able to extract better metadata or better description of PDB than the pipeline? And what could the pipeline learn from that?
I don't know if they did any. They're just pulling from the metadata data elements that are being presented by PDB as well, right?
I don't know.
I'm
not digging into those weeds. I'm just what did they did here, and let's compare A with B.
Yeah, we can definitely look at the A to B comparison. Did they actually provide? Did they provide some sample PDB?
No, but I'm sure we can ask them for it.
Yeah, why don't we? That might be the simple thing to do is just look at what their PDB output is.
Yeah, I think maybe someone in your team, Jeff, maybe Yuling.
Yeah.
Can quickly maybe learn a little bit more from them, just to see what are the difference from our current pipeline.
Yeah.
Then we assess how much work needed to actually start integrate this new pipeline. Then we decide what to do.
The integration piece that would be someone who's a developer would have to look at that.
Yeah.
No, but in terms, but yeah, Yuling could look
just
at the.
Trying to assess how much work needed.
Yeah.
I sort of agree with you. Now we all three of us are familiar with the ingest pipeline. We want to just make full speed just to include more data repository instead of spending. If it will be a lot of effort trying to learn another process to integrate it. So, but I think Ian is right. We want to make an assessment and to see if it's reasonable. Then maybe, and it will speed up our current procedure. Then we may consider to spend some time to integrate.
So, okay, this is the conceptual model.
Well, yeah, and they also had the machine learning.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
is this something that might be more?
I think it will helpful, but I'm little suspect that we can complete automate the whole thing, right? Based on what we already have, I'm pretty sure even we have machine learning, there's something you have to go through manually.
I'm stepping back a step, Hua, and saying, does it make sense to do that? We want to understand something about it before we do that.
No. What they propose is reasonable and might be more efficient, but we just need to spend more time to learn the whole procedure, because it's not just easy just to look at slide and we understand every step. We just have to spend more time to learn, because even for the current ingestion pipeline, when Jeff's team develop it. It took us a long time to really learn the whole procedure.
Well, I think it's reasonable to ask this question of them as Ian has posed it. To summarize, I guess the question is, what is the value of what they were able to extract? And is this better than what the pipeline currently does? And if so, could the pipeline learn from that?
Yeah. Or I think we take like Jeff's team or someone from here, we can set up another meeting with them, ask them to like pick the one database PDV they did just from the beginning to all the way to the output. What are each component they have, and which part can be automatically, which part are like manual. We're just trying to learn more about the whole procedure.
So I know that they mapped it into their open further system, but did they ever say that they actually pulled in information?
That's what we want to
I mean, they described it, but I don't recall them saying this.
Because I don't remember seeing that here, and I can't remember if they actually said.
Yeah, I think it's good to set up another meeting with them to learn, like step by step, how they start from the source data repository all the way to the output of that. Even if it's 1.0, we want to, then we have better idea how to integrate.
So I want to highlight something here where I think this could do something useful for us all, which is that we're getting some from certain quarters the sense of, well, we want to compare. Are there other things that work? How do the other things compare with the BioCaddy approach? Now, to be honest with you, I think the idea of the BioCaddy approach is a naive one, because I don't think there is a single approach in BioCaddy, in DataMed. I think we're talking about a complex thing that's made up of many components, and those various components can each try different approaches. But if in this instance, if you can say, well, we got two approaches to bringing metadata in here. If we can say, well, how does the DataMed pipeline stack up against this other approach, then I think it will be communicating to the outside world something very useful, which is saying, here, we've evaluated two ways of harvesting metadata, and here's how they compare. That's something that should be visibly coming out of the project, and it will make the project much better received by the people who are asking the kind of question that I've just referred to. Because otherwise they think that, what DataMed is, it's one effort to do this, and like how should we compare it with other efforts to do the same thing? What that's ignoring is that there's that element of that within the project, and I think we need to be representing that well.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I think we learn more about their process than compare with our current process, and we can draw.
Okay.
So some follow-up with this group is needed along those lines.
Yeah. I will email. So Jeff, I will include you and Yuling in the email when I follow up with Ram. And then maybe we could set up a meeting.
Sure.
Okay. So with the machine learning, I don't think, is that something we want to look at? I think what they did was kind of learn. So the next pilot project was the one that Gochin presented with Harold, and that was about feasibility study of indexing clinical research data using HL7 Fire platform, and we need to also think about the integration part of it, as well as whether we do really want to integrate or not. And for this, I know that they actually were looking at mapping, they did dbGaP, was their use case. And they mapped from dbGaP to that, I think, version 1 again. I remember we had a lot of feedback from Harold regarding the metadata version 1. So I don't know at what phase we could potentially integrate it.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about it. So I'm thinking about one potential integration is maybe something similar to the demonstration project we did, say, for dbGaP particularly, right? If you dive into dbGaP, we can have something maybe using their index with file search a little bit more deep for dbGaP. Maybe even on the, I don't know, variables. Right now, we are not searching variables of data sets in dbGaP.
I mean, do they have, I mean, from when they do their crawl of dbGaP, did we get all their dbGaP data that we could bring into the prototype?
I don't think we got any data from them.
Because that's one thing that we could do with it. I mean, that would be the sort of the one way to sort of look at their data would be to bring it into the prototype.
But that would be for whatever system that they've worked with, right?
Right, but they were, as Hua was saying, they were doing some additional sort of digging into dbGaP to pull out some additional information. And so if they do have the dbGaP data, that's something that we can pull in to look at, how that affects, search and the like.
Okay, so let's say, so, oops. I was just trying to pull up their presentation, but we haven't really asked them for any of their data or anything yet, so I guess we could do that.
So Jeff, do you mean we want to use their dbGaP index? Because anyway, our dbGaP is not up to date.
Well, yeah, I mean that gets back to that email thread where the dbGaP was run off some other the dbGaP metadata feed. But yeah, I mean we could potentially use this as sort of a dbGaP metadata feed if they're doing some additional extraction. I don't know, for their because they're doing some additional sort of extraction of information. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's another possible.
Take control of your space and get rid of clutter with the next generation of home improvement.
What happened? Did we lost?
Go to the Home Depot.
Okay.
Hold on, go back one slide. It says, okay, keep on going.
So they did phenotype variables. They did index it.
Right.
So request. So they have a prototype for JSON LD map driven transformation.
Well, yeah, I mean, the question is, can they actually generate a set of dbGaP data that we could bring in?
Yeah,
right?
let's ask them. No problem,
Yeah.
I think. We should ask them.
Yeah, okay. The ask is they can generate so if we use that, how would we update from dbGaP?
Well, that would be the follow-on with them is what, sort of how does their system, how would we run their system then, sort of, in the future?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think there seems to be some of these, we're looking at them and asking the question, well, how would we integrate? But are we asking the question, why should we integrate? And
well, that's the first part, right?
the same thing about, so why does this end up with something better for end users in terms of searching data? And that seems to me the horse, whichever way around it's supposed to be, the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart. But we should ask that before we say, hey, yeah, let's integrate this. What does it prove?
No, exactly, and that's why. I mean, I think that's why we would need to get the data from them to see what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
And work with it. So that's why. I mean, that's why getting the data is step one, and then if that is deemed to be a better quality, then the second question is, well, how do we run this in the future and continue to get data, right?
Right. And again, a useful output here is to say we looked at this and we looked at this, and here's what we learned from this. That's different from putting it as a functioning feature within the prototype. But that is still a very useful output from the BioCaddy project that we need to see visibly somehow. Now, I'll leave it open as to how that is reported, but to be able to see that would be important.
So what's the action item here? To get more data from them?
Yeah.
I think Jeff's got it, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So we are going to ask them for their metadata of dbGaP that they can generate or they've already generated, since they use dbGaP as a use case.
What happened?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that, asking for data might be a good test too, because in a lot of these slides, I see a lot of prototype. So the question is, are they able to generate the whole set of data?
So when we say sample data, Jeff, how many should we ask for, or?
I would just ask, the other answer is how, can we get, can they do it for all the data? So I would just ask, if we can get the dB gap dump from them. And if they say, well, we can give you some sample records,
okay,
that sort of answers some of our questions.
All right. Okay. So, in terms of talking about inclusion of more repository into DataMed, the plan was that each site should get at least 2 repositories mapped per week. And what I would like to initiate some conversation on is to actually have, so I added a couple of, what did I do? I added a couple of rows here for the dates that people are working on, where we are looking at, on the date that the sample data for a specific repository is generated, the date needs to be inserted here. If the transformation is done, then it's going to be checked, but this means that the transformation has been completed and has been put, so if the sample data has been generated, then we would expect to see this in the sample, in the data pipeline here in GitHub. Again, if the metadata has been mapped, then we should see some transformation scripts in the GitHub repository. I just want to remind everybody that they do need to update this. Jeff, so one of the questions that Ruling and I had was, if we do put in the transformation scripts here, would you like for that to go in here and for Yuling or somebody else from your team to kind of validate it before we go ahead with the ingestion process, or?
Well, I mean, you can validate using the online tool yourselves.
And is that good enough?
Yeah.
Does it need?
I mean, that's the reason to have individual groups doing this, right?
Okay.
And then,
so. Okay.
I mean, the main question gets, how do we want to? So, for example, if Ruling defines, ingestion for, a new source, then, you can go through the whole process, get the transformed output and work with that. Still need to filter back, the ingestion configuration and stuff like that to the primary system, right?
Yeah. So that's another question that I had, was where the NLP pipeline is not something any of the other teams are working with. I mean, the NLP part of the pipeline. So is that something that kicks in at the indexing phase, or is it something that you would actually include during the ingestion process?
Well, that's part of the workflow for the processing of the documents. But I know that we're doing some updates to the NLP piece of that, so I'm not sure if I think at the current, that's why I said, at the current time, I think you can use for, the 1.5, is it?
Yeah.
For that, we can use, I think, the data, because I don't think the NLP piece of that will be part of the release in 1.5. I think that's more of a 2.0, if I sort of remember the conversations correctly.
Yeah, I think the NLP component for the data ingestion part we can delay to the next version. On the user interface side, we already implement basically when they type a query, we will do some NLP and expand it. But on the back end, the data ingestion part, let's hold it because we need a more solid evaluation and need more improvement on the performance, especially for those gene names and other things.
But if the pipeline is going to get modified, is there merit to them running it ahead of time? Because then they would have to rerun it, right?
Yeah, I think maybe at this stage we don't have to run the NLP pipeline during data ingestion. Let's just plan it like it will be run later and how that will be added to the current metadata.
Does that sound okay, Jeff?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
But then when we rerun, that's what I said, when we rerun with the NLP stuff, since our setup here has multiple consumers, we can spin up multiple consumers, that we need to get the ingestion configuration, and if the transformation file is in GitHub, we can get it from there, and that would then allow us to to run it here as well.
So Jeff, I create a new folder named configuration, and I also put the configuration file under that folder.
Okay, the only thing we have to be careful with, since this is a public, is if there's, I can't recall in some of the config files, because they are, if they, I think most of them use public and anonymous type access, but if there's anything for any config file that anyone generates that has password information, that needs to be stripped when it's up.
So Jeff, if the fact that this is a public repository is an issue, we can always convert it into a private repository for now, because it's just the 3 teams that are going to be accessing this particular repository, right?
Yeah.
Or 4 teams if you include Philippe and Alejandra. So then I don't know that it needs to be public, as long as people within the BioCADI group are able to access it, if that's a concern. So can we share the config files then through the same means?
Then we could definitely put the config files here, if that's the case.
And just for clarification, when we're talking about the NLP and introducing that into the pipeline, which NLP component are we talking about? Is it the one that was done in the pilot projects?
No. We're talking about the NLP component. For example, go to the title, go to the description of metadata, datasets, trying to find out gene names, chemical names within those descriptions.
And so we're just looking at which fields, we're looking at the title.
We have a number of fields we're running NLP, trying to find those things.
It's applying it to the metadata that's after it's been filtered through the pipeline?
Yeah, that's part of the pipeline. We were thinking about to include this as part of the pipeline.
I don't know if it's after or during the ingestion process.
Well, it's after. It's the last.
It could be
running it as the last thing. So basically, we do whatever metadata extraction we can do, and then the NLP goes into the text, and then for some of the freeform text tries to pull out additional.
So this isn't NLP that's pulling metadata out, identifying metadata in large blocks of text. It's just looking at it's taking the stuff that we've already put into certain fields and then applying it to that. Right?
Yeah.
So in a way, the distinction I'm making is it's working on already structured data rather than trying to find structure out of unstructured data.
Well, it's working on the unstructured component of the structure.
Yeah. We're digging ourselves a hole here, Jeff.
Yeah, there you go.
So Jeff, just to confirm, so if we do the ingestion, how do we get the data to you?
Well, I don't need the data. What we need is the config and the transform.
And then you would again.
Ruling is the one that needs the data, right? For incorporation into the prototype.
Yeah, but my question is since Ruling, we here are running and we'll be including it in the UI, I guess even if we do it directly, it should be okay. But for example, if Nansu is going to run a pipeline and they ingest something, how are they going to provide that ingested metadata to either?
Well, he needs so there are two paths, right? So if there's getting the configuration and so we need to get the configuration and transform, right?
And
so that we can find it, and Ling needs to get the Elasticsearch documents as data to incorporate in the prototype. So that's sort of how it's been going on in the past. The only addition is that now, because multiple people might be running the pipeline, so that we have a pipeline that can rerun and reindex and add new components. For that, we need to make sure that we incorporate those the configurations and the transformations into the pipeline that we have here.
Okay, this is Hyunhee. I'm a little bit confused. So from our end, to help with this ingestion, what do we need to do? We need to reinstall with a new configuration. Reinstall the whole pipeline with a new configuration. That's what you're saying?
Well, for each data source needs a configuration.
Okay.
Right, and so that's what we've walked Nansu through. So basically, each one. So here's a configuration for TCGA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it says what type of method is it? What's the URL, for example, to get the data? There's a transform script that it's linked to. What type of parser is needed to get the data?
I see. Okay.
And so that information is needed by the system to actually connect to the source to get the metadata.
Okay. So we are not touching any production server. So those YML file, that's what we need to generate and send to you. Is it the workflow or?
Right. So
okay.
when you again, the ingestion process has two parts. There's the connection to the source to get the metadata, and that's done in the config files. And then there is the transformation of that metadata and to the index target. Mm-hmm. And that's done by the transformation files.
Right.
right? So those are the two things that we need. Now, if a source is special, right, it doesn't have a metadata feed and you have to write a parser, then, I mean, we also should have that parsing code somewhere, because then the configuration file is a little special, and that's probably.
So what about the cases? I mean, actually, we had many of those.
That would be included in the ingesters, right? Or am I?
Yeah, and I think there's an endar one in there already.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so the easiest source data repositories are the ones that provide API or just the clean metadata documentation. Or, I mean, the next one would be the things that we can just scrape and parse. That's it. And then we also had many cases where we had to do a lot of manual work to understand the data content and tease out the metadata by ourselves. So what about those cases?
What do you mean manual work to tease out metadata? Was that, I mean,
no documentation, no clean data table, so we just scrape everything and just put together into a table format and spend lots of time to understand the content and try to contact the person who owns the data and so on. So there's no algorithmic ways of getting the overall picture of the data content, but
so you have then a static file that is the metadata?
Yes, there's no documentation about the metadata, so we basically put together a data table based on the web page.
Right, no, but at the end of that, is it a process that can be repeated in an automatable fashion, or is it you now have a data set that was created manually and we have a data file that we can use?
So that's my concern. So we do have some content that we worked from, but that's not necessarily the entire data set of the repository.
We have another meeting.
It's just a sample data. So would it be good enough for indexing? That's what I'm asking.
We need to hurry up. Actually, we have another meeting.
So maybe we can. I'm sorry. I will talk to Jeff separately. I'm sorry.
Because I'm trying. If we go over what the specific source is that you're talking about, then we can. We can.
Yeah, I think.
So Jeff, at 3:00, if you want, we can call in again from outside And
I think if needed, for the data ingestion part, we can talk more.
Yeah, at 3:00.
Even Rayling, Huey, Jeff. Yeah.
Right. Well, I can do it in an hour.
No. So 3:00 for us. Is that possible for you? That would be right now in a minute.
Right after this.
Right after.
Oh, that's why I said I have back to back right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can set up a meeting later then.
Can we maybe after the steering committee meeting on Thursday? Because my tomorrow is pretty crashed.
We figured out all the ingestion.
Because I also think Nansu had some questions with regard to ingestion.
Yep. Yeah. No. There's
yes, I have
threads going on about that.
Yeah.
Maybe Nansu and Huey can. On Thursday afternoon, are you able to come over here?
Oh yeah, that I'm okay with that.
Yeah, Thursdays looks good.
Yeah.
And if you want Reeling to be on the call, just let us know and we can just call in.
So that would be like 3:00. Is 1:00 good for you, Nansu?
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay. That would be 3:00 on Thursday. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay.
3:00 there. Will be 5:00 here.
There is
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
Yeah. 1 would be 3:00 your time, right?
Yeah. So, okay. Are we pretty much
I think
done?
so. I
In terms of data repository, how are we doing? How many new?
So this is something that I generated for last week's EC meeting.
This is
but
Ian
I haven't
Ashgo.
updated it.
Can we just quickly update it, like how many new have been annotated? Jeff, any
new? So the new ones is Unipro, and there are two more that are being done right now that are new.
Unipro?
There's actually a total of 4, because
Okay,
one of
so
them
4
Unipro is actually 2 as well, because it's 2
Okay.
separate databases. They're SwissProt and Tremble.
So that's from Jeff's team, but we have like TCGA, NB, epigenomics, SimCK, vector-based are all NSRR, RGD are all new from what.
What about mods?
Which one?
I'm
mods?
sorry.
So RGD is one of the mods.
Yeah.
Vector-based is another mod. So we instead of having them classified as mods and having all of them, I just went in and expanded everything and put the individual repositories because it's easier to work on that way.
There's a.
So.
I see.
I'm trying to figure out like how. So I guess your team has not finished any new ones, right? Because you're still working on the pipeline.
Well, this is the mapping
That's
part.
correct. Oh, it's okay.
This is the mapping, and this is the ingestion part. They're still setting up the ingestion pipeline.
Okay.
That's correct.
So if you look at the DATS 2.x repositories, I put some calculators on the left.
What I want to see, like every week, I want to we have a report from each side, like how many new repository we have been indexed. That's something I think we should update.
Yeah, that would be in here. You could pull it from here. But currently on the list we have 50. And some of these, there are a bunch, for example, from UT Health, which look like the NSRR and RGD, where the mappings are done. So I'm assuming that they're close to being run.
I already put them into the ingestion pipeline.
Right, but
done.
Has the ingestion been run, or?
I think NSRR had an error. I need to check and maybe debug.
Okay.
But two of them are done. For example, TCGA is done. So we'll put update the information here.
Like next week, I want you to say UT House finished 2, and Jeff's team finished 4 additional. Then Uni's team. I think every week let's have an update on the number of repositories we have.
Well, because the TCGA is still is not. It doesn't have an index date, so.
No, we haven't updated it here yet.
I think
we will do it.
Let's update the list every week, so we know
every
where
Monday
we
we'll
are.
update the list.
Yeah, where we are, and we can we can make sure we are on the track.
And then I also put in the dates here. This will help me actually because we have another spreadsheet. This is meant more for the other EC members, and so this is a simplified spreadsheet which has the priority score, and it is meant for other EC members and also for us to track exactly the date that we started, which is when we start getting the sample data, when we completed the metadata mapping.
This is good too.
The ingest, so we get an idea of how many days. We get an idea of how many.
I think this is good too. I think basically I want this showing the time.
Right, time frame, and
but it's
so
good
it has
to highlight the finished ones, and we have every week how many finished by
I think we can probably just follow it up here.
Yeah.
I tried to link up the two to kind of update it automatically, but it didn't work out. So I think we'll have to do it manually.
We have to get out now. There's another meeting for this room, so I guess we'll stop here.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye now.